It's the double-edged sword of impunity, including impunity in picking not the low-hanging fruit, but that really good stuff at the top of the tree. It has all the good sun and the access to the sun and might have those particular kind of birds nesting in the branches, which is a little different than the stuff at the bottom part of the tree. It may be more inclined to just fall off and fall into the ground, or it might get picked by just a random passerby. You actually have to go out of your way to figure out how to get that tree top accessible to you to pick the fruit when it's ripe. Hey, is this the problem? Is the problem that when I was put in that simulation where I was the prosecutor, the problem was that what was anticipated was that they would swap me out to being the defendant? And so all of these big, manly men, big, manly, conservative men, they got the chin, they got the forehead, they got the bone structure, they look a lot, they have a lot of similar characteristics. And by now, they're silver hairs, right? They're of a certain age and they have a pretty distinguished look about them, probably because they're all in the same sort of tier, capital tier, or the same sort of plan, maybe the same sort of, I don't know, subcommittee of their bar membership. And they expect to be able to be the ones that get the credit for being the affirmative, assertive, manly man's American voice, including the manly man's American voice of trying to call out corruption, including maybe even corruption in public office, including those terrible people who might be on the other side of the aisle, like those horrible Democrats, or even if they themselves are Democrats. Because let me tell you, that particular demographic, it kind of shakes out pretty evenly on one side of the aisle or the other. If you're in the legislature, or maybe the one desk versus the other desk, it actually kind of shakes out pretty evenly. The problem is they also borrowed what they have now when they were younger from people that were minors. And the understanding is that they get the affirmation of the actual success of their privileged position if those young people they borrowed from at the time agree to acknowledge their authority to take their lives in their stead and use it, including potentially in matters politically they might have cooperated with, or in matters contrary to what they would have done if they had been independent and on their own. But the point of the matter is the subordination of their sovereignty and the understanding of their reduction as an understanding of a loan to them. And so there are certain topics they'll broach, including in a very assertive manner, in a very confident, manly manner. But there are certain things that are supposed to be secret. And do they have some sort of consideration of their own privilege, their own rights to privacy, their own rights to confidentiality? Is my high school JAG lawyer supposed to be your prosecutor, and so you have an expectation of some sort of privileged communication where I'm supposed to keep my mouth shut and understand that you're my senior, and because you're the senior, that you were entitled to get your respect and you were entitled to get your acknowledgement, and at some point in time after maybe you die off. Oh, wait a second, isn't that what you're accusing Hillary Clinton of doing? Because that's what I would have accused Hillary Clinton of doing, right? Of allowing herself to be in the position of First Lady, where she had so much influence over the development of young women as well as young men. Not only in terms of how they could anticipate and expect to comport themselves, but what they could understand would be their recourse when somebody abused their power in trying to exploit them. And now we're going on 25, 26, maybe even 27 or 28 years down the road. And a lot of those guys that probably thought it was fun to, see how she responded when they accused her, in addition to all those other guys, many of whom are now dead, that actually had justified accusations and actual investigations that, somehow fell by the wayside, right? Because that stuff's all underwriting now, including on insurance for lawyers. And it doesn't really matter how many times you contact them and how precisely the casework they're working on is. They already got their investment in the specific kind of unique asset class you were inculcated into. And you were supposed to do certain things in order to assure their stabilization, including through the end of their life. They have every intention of going in their more prime years, this 15 to 20 year range over and above where you are now. And rather than actually being retired and on Medicare, which is where they want you at, they're actually trying to continue spearheading and pioneering and ever increasing and ever more assertive and definitive demonstrative action concerning their competence and their capabilities, right? Let me ask you guys, do I ever get out of being your high school loner? Do I ever get past the stage where I am basically nothing more than some sort of raw political capital that you can draw on at will and as you want? And in this case, literally, as of like literally today, you wanted to be able to use me as a kickback to one of your supporters. I contacted you several times directly. I am absolutely 100% materially of interest in things you allege that you have a reputation for being involved in. Every single time, your guys did the same things they did on the other side of the aisle, right? This whole concept of a RICO conspiracy, appearances of factional differences, this isn't a factional difference. You had every intention of being able to get your kickback just like the rest of them did, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not going to be able to go on. Why are you sending a credit card to this address today? Today is August 6, 2021. I'm looking at your site right now. Look at all that nice little stuff going back and forth. How many times did I contact you directly? Administrators at your office did the same thing that, I don't know, both senators did, by the way, right? And I know you're supposed to have a very high profile case, but the problem is your case and what your success is, especially in those regards, much less any of the other material interests you might have, seem to be predicated upon a certain kind of underlying consistency and being able to exploit resources that there's only a very limited manner in which you personally could be availed of. But with this kind of precision, you obviously are in that group. You're that important, right? You're that important and you're that culpable.